As he does every morning, Yasar works his taxi through the busy streets of Istanbul. A small cab fare away at the University of Marmara, Professor Ibrahim KABOGLU is about to give what could be one of his last lessons. Accused of insulting Turkishness under Article 301 of the Penal Code for a report on minorities he wrote whilst president of the Turkish Human Rights Council, he could face up to 3 years in jail.
Our lives are in danger, our families are also targeted, and from this point of view, it is permanent hypocrisy on the part of our government vis-à-vis the EU.
De la part de nos autorités gouvernementales vis-à-vis des autorités de l'Union européenne.
Similar to those of other Turkish intellectuals like Orhan Pamuk, this case is even more significant given that the European Parliament is about to vote a resolution on Turkey. The resolution will influence the Commission's progress report due for November. It insists on the need to speed up economic, political and social reforms, to guarantee freedom of expression and religion, and to protect women's and minorities' rights. However, the issue of Armenian genocide is barely touched upon, and the demands are expressed softly and discreetly.
The European Parliament, in a soft tone which allows for dialogue to remain open, has asked the European Commission to talk to the new Turkish government about the issues that the European Parliament considers important and to include them in the progress report.
Perhaps feeling scrutinised, the ruling Islamic AK party, led by Prime Minister Erdogan and President Gül, has promised to accelerate reforms and modernise the constitution.
Herkesin ortak olduğu şey
the Constitution needs to undergo change, and secondly, the main principles of the Constitution, which are democracy, secularism and the social state with the supremacy of the rule of law. Those principles must be maintained.
Constitutional reform has raised expectations in Turkey and in Europe. But the European Parliament and Commission know it will be a lengthy process. They've warned Turkey not to use this as an excuse to delay urgent reforms, such as the Penal Code.
This is going to be a long and challenging process, and it should therefore not become a convenient means to delay all reforms. We think of urgent issues such as freedom of expression.
Don't link it too much to the new constitution, because that could take a long time. Do it quickly. They know what to do, they know what we want, and I think there's a majority also in Turkey who wants these limitations on freedom of speech to be removed.
Joost presides over the EU-Turkey Mixed Parliamentary Commission. He knows firsthand about the Penal Code. He was once accused under Article 301 of having insulted the army. The case was quickly dropped, but in the eyes of the EU, it added urgent need for the Penal Code to be reformed. President Gül has hinted at this, but many still have their doubts. Hakan Yilmaz, a specialist in EU-Turkey relations, knows the EU's demands, as well as the real worries of the Turkish government.
Their priority now is not Article 301. They wouldn't divide their party over a very hot symbolic issue like 301. I think they are ready to face European criticism for another year. And in the meantime, they would try to change the constitution, because that's much more important for them, for their political agenda.
Another point on Turkey's list of things to reform is the constant interference of the army in the political process. This was last in evidence at the start of the presidential electoral process in April. The European Parliament's resolution is asking the new government to establish once and for all civilian control over the army. But for Hugh Pope, a British reporter who's been living in Turkey for more than 20 years and is now advisor to the International Crisis Group in Istanbul, one should consider history before making any demands.
In Turkish history, the army has always played a leading role, if not the leading role. Turkish armies have formed the states. They are also, as the army, the most respected institution of Turkey. And I think the outside world has to take that into account when dealing with Turkey.
The influence of the army, combined with the increasingly difficult Kurdish issue, conflict in Cyprus and perceived lack of freedoms, are still the main stumbling blocks on Turkey's path to Brussels. But the fact Turkey has neighbours that include Iran and Iraq, and a growing population currently of 70 million, which is 99% Muslim, also weighs heavily on European minds. In Turkey, the vast majority of the population still wants to join the EU, although enthusiasm is fading, and many, like Yasar, believe the EU's main concern is Islam.
European people, they don't want to in Turkey is in the European country. You know why? There's a Muslim people. I never see them in the European countries, a Muslim government there.
Adam gibi girerse girsin.
If we can enter properly, we should, but we shouldn't enter in these circumstances because they are trying to divide us.
Bozmaya gayret ediyorlar.
For President Gül, opinions like these come from the EU's tough attitude with Turkey.
Türk halkının çok büyük bir kesimi
A great majority of the Turkish population supports Turkish membership of the European Union, but there is a certain disillusionment. I have to openly, honestly say that as we go for deep-rooted reforms in Turkey, Turkish people think this is not being appreciated enough by the Union.
This is the biggest challenge for the European Commission. Its progress report must keep the dialogue open, while at the same time stating clearly that the reforms promised have not yet taken place.
I expect a message of honesty, strict and clear, and not to keep on pretending that everything is going fine. Especially now there is a new president of the Republic, a new majority in parliament. They need to prove themselves capable of satisfying the EU's demands.
Qu'elle doit faire ses preuves par rapport aux exigences qui sont celles de l'Union européenne.
I'm expecting a balanced, report, very critical, but ending with an optimistic tone.
As tensions rise on the Iraqi border and the Kurdish and Armenian issues emerge as bones of contention between Turkey and the US, there are grounds for pessimism. For now, the bridges above the Bosphorus are all that link Europe and the cradle of civilization.